Interview tomorrow following that Beverly Cohen.
I'd have to check because we just got his application and we haven't done the background.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
But
We just got it yesterday.
Justin.
But he's already on it. And
I
he's
know,
a
but we
late,
have to go through
Oh,
the
you
whole
do?
process again. We do the whole thing over.
because we have been about 3 months.
Yeah.
ago.
Are you ready?
Yeah. Not very long ago. I thought it was within the last year.
5:32. Let's roll. I'm waiting.
Okay, all right.
Go ahead.
Are we ready? Yep. Okay, on record.
Hello and welcome to the Lincoln City Budget Committee work session. Today is Monday, December 3rd, 2018. The time is, I think, 5:33. I'd like to make one correction. We will not be having comments from citizen present as there's not a hearing. All right. And may we have a roll call, please?
I just go around the table.
Oh, let's start with Ron.
Rob Chandler.
Judy Casper.
Dick Anderson. Kevin Holdbob.
Nancy Oxenholt.
Chet Norikis.
Larry Armstrong.
Rick Mark. Riley Hoagland.
Deanna Hinton. Susan Waukee.
All right. Thank you for having this for us. Appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Happy holidays to everybody. I'm very excited about this meeting. As you recall, over the last few budget meetings, we were not able to have a meeting prior to the budget actually being submitted. However, Debbie Bridges checked with the state, and they have said that we can within some parameters. In other words, we can't discuss a budget that doesn't exist yet. So we can't go into 2020 and talk about the 2020 budget. But we can use this opportunity as a chance to talk about both where we've been and where we're going. So in the staff report that I gave, it was very brief. It just outlined the pathway that I want to follow today. Some of these, I sent some background materials such as an organizational descriptions. I don't plan on going into those in a lot of detail. Those are there for your review. If you have any questions, just feel free to send me a note or Debbie a note or give me a call and we can go in those unless there are questions that you want to review. The biggest thing that we really want to get into tonight are the forecast policies that are in place and capital. So we'll just touch on the first couple of items just very briefly. In the budget process, the major players, there are four. The first is the budget officer, which consists of me as the budget officer, and then, of course, I have the support of the staff, who our department heads are all sitting behind you. They do the heavy lifting, and I get to do the presentation of it and tell them that works or that doesn't work. The budget committee is made up of 14 members, 7 who are the elected officials and 7 who are appointed by the elected officials. We currently have 3 vacancies, and we have 4 applicants for those 3 vacancies. The council has a subcommittee that will interview those and then make a recommendation to the city council.
City council. City council.
I'm sorry. Thank you. You're right. You're right. So they will be interviewed during a city council meeting, and then they will choose. And like I said, we have 3 vacancies, and at this moment we have 4 applicants. We had hoped to have this on the December 10th agenda, but probably not. We'll probably wait until the January meeting. We're doing some background checks on a couple of these.
Has the deadline passed for applications?
No, there's no deadline for an application. The third major player in the, just real quick again, on the committees, on the budget committee, 8 people makes a quorum. You have to have a quorum to meet. To adopt the budget, you have to have you you have to have 8 people vote for it. So for example, if we were not able to fill those 3 vacancies and we had only 11 positions, you could have a quorum made up of 6, but you have to have 8 to pass the budget. It has to be a majority of the full membership, even if there are vacancies. The third major player in this, of course, is the public. The public is represented in 3 ways. Of course, you have the council that was elected. You have the committee members that are pulled from the public. And then you have the public hearings in which people have the opportunity to testify. And then finally, you have the city council, which is the final player in the budget process and who formally adopts the budget. I've printed up several documents. I had enough people say, can you print up the documents? So we just didn't send them out. The first is this document that says the City of Lincoln City preparations for the 2020 calendar, budget calendar. Okay, I have them in the order in which we're going to go through them on your desk. This is now up to date. This is the budget calendar we will be going off of. A few highlights on the days. January 11th, so just 5 weeks from now is when the staff will submit the capital year plans to Debbie and me. Debbie will complete the year-end estimates by February 1st. The budgets are due, which means the budgets are due to me on March 4th, and then we will have them sent to you by April 19th. April 29th will be your first budget committee meeting, with the second one held on May 6th. If you need a third one, it will be held on May 20th. And finally, the city council will have it presented to them on June 10th for both a public hearing and adoption. If they feel that they need more time, then they have one more meeting before the end of the fiscal year. It has to be adopted by June 30th.
Did we have we worked out if this can be presented and just put online? Did that get fixed? No, the budget, when the budget is available?
Yes, it can be put online.
Okay.
And it will
has
go,
in the past, like,
yeah, it will go online on the 18th of April.
okay. I thought we had talked about it.
One of the things,
19th, the last day would be the 19th.
Yeah, so when it's delivered to you, it has to be available to the public at the same time.
one of the things that, a lot of what you're going to get tonight is actually preliminary stuff for your homework. We're involving the budget committee much earlier in this process, so there is homework to be done well before we actually present it to you. One of the things that we would like you to consider, a couple of you have mentioned to me on a different way of presenting it, more ease of use or more readable type of document. If you have any ideas or thoughts about that, please send Debbie and me a note, and we'll see what we can do.
Or if you have an example from another city,
Even better.
that's better, that's easier to do, to copy.
Okay, now just briefly, I had sent to you this document. We're not going to go through this in detail. It's the organization of the city. It has just a bullet point for each department on what they do. If you have questions about those, please let me know, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. The only thing that I really wanted to mention tonight is that there are 3 employees that report directly to the city council, and that's the city manager, the city attorney, and the municipal judge. All other employees report to the city manager, and they are broken out in 10 different departments: Human Resources, Public Works, Urban Renewals / Economic Development, Police, Library, Parks and Recreation, Planning and Community Development, Finance, Explore Lincoln City, and the IT departments.
Ron,
I don't think that's in our packet.
we don't seem to have that one.
This one was not, I didn't make copies of this for you, it was emailed earlier.
Gotcha.
Okay. It was quite lengthy, so there were 2 or 3 people that wanted us to print those up, so we did, but I did not print it up for everybody. Information about each department can also be found in the budget that you have. And then, of course, this handout was emailed to you. Debbie's going to talk a little bit about now the function of the budget committee on, I kind of titled this approval versus recommending, and it's really what is the authority of the budget committee.
So the budget committee functions like an advisory committee to the council. We do have an official role in approving the budget, but then it goes to council and can be changed at that point. And in the end, it reflects council's goals and where they want to put resources into. We provide a lot of detail in our budget. We provide every department, every line item, because that gives us the total. But the actual budget limits are not at the line level. They're at, depending on the fund, they're either at the department as a whole, or they're at personnel versus operations versus capital. And I did print off last year's resolution where we adopted the budget, and this is actually the legal limits and what we give to the county as far as our official budget. And there's a lot of detail under it, but that's not our legal limit, and so it can change. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what the official budget is versus all the information that we have in the budgets that you receive. 1, 2, 3, 4. So generally at the budget, there's still one. The focus is kind of at a mid-level. The budget committee and the council tell staff what it is they want to do, to have done, and to accomplish. And staff kind of self-identifies, well, we're going to need this and this and this. It fits within the budget parameters that you set in order to accomplish it. So in other words, you're not down looking at the paper clips and the nuts and the bolts. You're looking at, we want to provide this amount of police patrol, we want to provide this, we want to provide that, and we're willing to spend this much, and then we make that happen. So I don't know if that kind of makes sense.
Some of the areas where you see the practical implication of this is really in the city staffing levels. The budget committee, what they approve is the dollar amount that would go for personnel. However, how that personnel is deployed is determined by the administration and the approval of the city council. So for example, let's say you have $100,000 in a personnel cost, and you think that it should be down at $50,000. Well, that's what you would approve is $50,000. You then can make a recommendation about a staffing level, but you're not able to dictate you can't say, we wanted $50,000 and we want you to lay off this position. You can make that second recommendation that we think you only need this many people instead of that many people, but it's actually the administration and the city council that ultimately makes that determination. The other area where if things get affected in the salary or in the personnel is particularly the salary and benefits. We have two unions. We have the LCPEA, which is the police union, and we have the AFSCME, which is the most all of the other employees. And salaries are a negotiated item in the union contract, as are the benefits. So again, if you were to look at the benefits, it's a total of $100,000, and you think that it should be $120,000 will go up. You would not be able to say, I think you ought to increase salaries by 8% or something like that, or decrease them by 8%. That becomes part of the union contract that we have. Okay. Other areas where you see that, again, in the area of benefits where it's very difficult on the impact of it are in things where the city doesn't have much control, such as PERS, the Public Employee Retirement System. We are part of the state system. They are dictating what our contributions are, and so we have very little control over that, and so those have a real impact on the budget.
And you will see in some cases some significant variation from past to proposed budget in medical, for example, or in PERS, because in medical, the expense to the city is quite different depending on whether a person is single or if they have a family. And that's something we have to be very careful about discussing and not getting into being prejudiced against certain family statuses. And also the PERS, the rates are very different depending on a tier 1, tier 2 versus OPSERT. So if we have a tier 1, tier 2 retire and we hire an OPSERT, the PERS expense will go way down, or vice versa. But again, that's a cost that's really dictated and not a function of a budget to set that. It's more set, what's the staffing level, and then the benefits are a result of that staffing level.
Any questions on organization before we really get into kind of the meat of the topics that I really wanted to discuss? No, go ahead.
I was just kind of looking through some budget committee functions, and one thing that was stressed that I think is really important to point out, especially for people that are new to this, is that you really aren't allowed to talk about the city budget to anyone on this committee outside of a public meeting, and that's for public transparency laws. So if you want to have discussions about the budget, it's got to be in a public meeting. So just bear that in mind. With each other. You can talk to citizens.
Okay, I'm going to change the order just a little bit on my staff report and jump to the city council's goals and priorities. One of the reasons I'm really excited about having this meeting early is that ultimately the budget should reflect the goals and priorities of the city council and the input and the goals and priorities of the budget committee. Now, we have a pretty good way of knowing the goals and priorities of the city council because we work with them all year. The budget committee is much more difficult because normally we don't see you until the budget's prepared. The budget this year, and we hope, and going forward, reflects the current priorities of the city council. I had sent to you this document earlier, but I didn't print it up. It is mostly just where we are on different projects, and I'm going to spend more of the time on just the overall goals of it. The City Council's goals and priorities that were established approximately a year ago. The first was to develop parks and recreation facilities. The most obvious of that you see in our budget is the Taft Park, which includes both funds to purchase and funds to develop, about $900,000 that's included within the budget. You also have a budget of $42,000 for the development of a teen center. And those were the items that were approved by the Budget Committee and City Council and meant to reflect the goal of the development of the park. The second is in the area of police priorities, particularly in modernization. You will see going forward how this is reflected in the budget, and that is in the debt service for the new police building. We are having our groundbreaking on Thursday. You're all welcome to come, and that will be at 1 o'clock. No little gold shovels, backhoes. So if you want to run the backhoe, come along and join us.
You want to run the backhoe? Don't offer it. I can't do it.
No, I'm serious, man.
No, I'm serious.
We want you to come and run the backhoe. When we tore down the gazebo, we did that. It was an awful lot of fun, and none of this little shovel stuff.
Except there's nothing to tear down, is there?
You're going to dig into the side of the. You're going to dig.
I'll be there.
Stay out of this guy's way.
You should raffle this off.
I already don't.
But if you happen to choose to knock down my old building, I won't complain.
You just gotta figure out where to put everybody.
That's fine.
The biggest thing that you'll see coming in the budget, the City Council approved the debt service on this. It's about $615,000 a year. and it will come out of the facilities capital fund. That's significant because what it does is it really impacts our ability to do other projects. So this priority really came to the forefront, and we're very excited about it. Economic development, you'll see in our budget from this past year a couple of things that are significant. One is the increasing of our toolbox to spread it beyond just urban renewal to other parts of the city as well. And then you have the development of properties. The city is currently looking at 9 properties to be developed. 5 of those are commercial properties. And we are in various stages of negotiations and moving forward. Allison Robertson is tasked with that assignment, and she's doing a terrific job with that. The other area where you see it in our budget, we budgeted $35,000 to do a study for the creation of one or more new urban renewal districts. The City Council has identified 2 areas that they're currently studying. One is the Southeast 23rd Street, and the other is the Rhodes End area. And those studies are on their way now. The third priority is infrastructure. I'm going to skip over that right now because I have another document that just has a whole list of what's in the budget on that. The fourth area is in workforce housing. Again, we are looking at property development. Well, there's 2 things. One is our partnership with the Lincoln Community Land Trust, which is now working directly. Its partnership has shifted over to Proud Ground. I am very pleased to say that we have a home that has now been sold to a family under that workforce housing program.
So that's 3 now.
That's 3 now. So,
What did it sell for and how big was it? Do you know?
Allison, do you know that?
I think it's 2 bedroom, 1 bath, and I think it was around 150,000, but I'm not sure.
The real benefit of this is it's structured so that it remains workforce in perpetuity, which essentially means that the first owner, when they sell it, doesn't get a huge windfall. The subsidized amount that we have now continues on to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th buyers. The other areas I mentioned, we had 9 properties that were being developed. 3 of these are exclusively residential properties, and with all or some workforce element to them. They are the Fernwood development in the Villages, Northeast 1st Street, which has been called Hostetler Park. Did I get it wrong?
25th.
No, we had Northeast 1st Street that had some in it. Okay, and then we had the 25th Street property. Okay, we also have 1 property that is a mixed use between commercial and residential, and that's still being negotiated. Okay, the 4th area is in the area of emergency preparedness, primarily the work that we have been doing this over the last 6 months is in the Beat the Wave and training for the staff. Then finally, the one that I really wanted to spend a little bit of time with, because as we go forward, some of the most significant policies the council has said have actually been set within the budget. You were all part of that last year. These were things that we'll be carrying into future budgets. The first financial policy pertains to the sewer. If you recall that last year we increased the sewer rate by $1.97 per month, and we had proposed that over the next 2, maybe 3 years, but probably just 2, that any increase in the sewer rate would go to sewer capital and be earmarked for that, thereby creating an ongoing revenue source for capital projects. If you recall, one of the things that we had discussed and had lengthy discussions about was whether or not we should try to do this through debt. And eventually, the city council backed away from that. We came up with another plan, which I think ultimately is a better plan, which will give us about $1 million a year that will be used towards sewer capital projects.
And where are you getting the money?
It is the $1.97 that we increased
Right.
last year, and the next two increases will go strictly for capital. They will not go for operational. So what it means is that for those 3 years, the sewer really has to tighten its belt to live on what they have.
Also, the rate increase, so normally we do a rate increase in both water and sewer. We're foregoing the rate increase in the water to kind of beef up the sewer rate so that the average bill still doesn't go up, still goes up as before, but sewer's getting more and water's getting less to try to get the funding for capital in there.
And we anticipate, like we discussed last year, that will go for another couple budget seasons while we try to build that up. And ultimately, the benefit is that we don't have to go into debt in order to do that.
Pay that interest.
It will put the sewer fund on the same level as the water fund, where we have a dedicated revenue source that can be used for capital.
Thank you.
The second area of financial policy, that this is its third year, I think we're now into it, third year, maybe fourth year, is that we have embarked on making sure that all of our paved roads have a overlay done over a 20-year period. The estimated cost of that is about $500,000 per year. The budget includes that. In this year's budget, right now we anticipate including that in next year's budget. The third area is in PERS. It is the PERS rate increases every 2 years, and it's increasing by about 20% every 2 years. We've just got the latest numbers, and that's exactly where I think it's 21%, isn't it? And so, in order to avoid having to take such a large hit all at once, we have been spreading that out, so we're looking at 10% increases each year. Now, what that's done for us, it's done two things primarily. One is that each year hasn't had to be as large a hit. The second is that in the off years, when we haven't had the PERS increase, it's provided a little bit of extra that goes into the fund balance at the end of the year. Okay, and helps
What's the dollar amount?
capital. Pardon me?
What's the approximate dollar amount?
Oh, boy.
So that, all right, I don't ask too far.
Well,
We'll look it up and she'll come back to it when she finds it.
We put extra in with the last budget. Wasn't there 25,000 that was going to be state matched or?
And that was a matching program. We also increased the rates, the costs in the budget by 10%, even though the rates weren't going up. And that has actually, in 17, 18, it's gone down. 19 will go down. Yeah. I'm sorry, between audit, which is a year back, and budget was a year forward, I never know what year it is. Anyway, it's gone into fund balance, but there are two pieces that we did increase there.
While she looks for that, I'll move on to the next one. This budget last year increased the outside agency request to $150,000 from $50,000. That's the second year we've done that. I don't know how this will play out in next year's budget until we meet with the new city council and discuss their priorities. There's been enough interest in the council that I think that this will be reviewed as they look at their priorities.
Last year was the first year that we increased it. The year before, we had added to it from the $1 million.
You're right. Thank you. Okay, the fifth policy that we have established is pertaining to our general fund, to all of our fund balances, and that is to have a minimum reserve. Under the general fund, we have kept $6 million as a rainy day fund. That shows up in the fund as the unappropriated fund balance. Our total fund balance has been about $8 million, and that includes the contingency, which this year was right around $2 million. The contingency is money we can pull from if we have a need for it, something goes over budget or something like that. If the unappropriated fund balance, we can't pull from that unless it's a true emergency. On the other funds, such as our water and sewer utility funds, we were maintaining a $500,000 fund balance, which is approximately 4 months worth of cash flow. And then finally, we had about $1 million that we are using it for one-time expenses. Its primary purpose from the staff standpoint is to be a hedge against inflation. Ultimately and eventually it will be gobbled up as inflation increases. But until then, the policy that was approved last year is that we would use that for one-time expenses so that it doesn't gobble up in ongoing operations.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
I think originally that $1 million fund was, it came from the annexation of Rhodes End and those taxes. And I'm a person who lives there, so I know that my taxes are going up. So is there some way that you check inflation, or does it not matter in this discussion, or what?
You mean based on the individual areas of the city? We have not done that kind of comparison to see if there's one area that has a greater impact than another
So I
area.
thought if the money's coming from there, then a good way to check is to look at how much taxes are actually being collected from that area and whether or not there is actually more money going in there. Like last year there would have been, this year there will be.
You mean going
So,
into the
Into
area?
that fund, if it's coming, if that's where it's
Matching
coming
taxes,
from.
raising taxes.
Well, I'm just, last year, what was it, $35,000 or something that was decreased from that fund for inflation, I think you said.
Right.
Whereas my taxes and all my neighbors' taxes went up.
I see what
And
you're saying.
so,
Except if I can, I think the simple explanation comes through annexation. But in reality, it was annexation, it was urban renewal declined, so that money came back to get to the $1 million. So it was, yes, additional revenue from properties from Rhodes End through annexation, but urban renewal, I forget the term,
Revenue sharing.
revenue sharing, so the city got more because the urban renewal didn't take it, and then transit room tax. It's those three revenue sources that brought in that $1 million excess, so to speak. So it wasn't just property taxes. It's easy to,
That's what it was told to us, is that it was property tax.
well, that, all I'm saying is that's the easiest thing to say, is because of annexation. But in reality, it was
I
three.
think the way that we actually phrase that is that it was the impact from the annexation.
And that would imply these three.
Yeah, because you also have the transient room tax that was a part of that
Right,
annexation
exactly.
as well. But we can follow up on that, Councilor. Okay, any questions about the council's goals and priorities? Okay. All right. Okay, now just talking a little bit about the budget itself. Just some of the mechanics of it, just a reminder, the budget message is the narrative portion of it. We are required to have a budget message, but it's not really the budget. The budget are the numbers, okay? It's meant to provide information that will help people understand the budget itself. The budget is broken out into funds, primarily governmental, enterprise, and capital. We have arranged those by services, so you'll see them arranged in the budget by services belonging to the sewer fund, services belonging to the water fund, and so forth. The most important thing to remember about the funds is that they are all meant to be self-balancing sets of accounts, which means they are not one pot from which you can pull to do everything. There are statutory limitations on what you can do with the different funds, and there are limitations that we set on ourselves through our charter, such as where transient room tax funds go. Now, I have included in your budget, or in your packet, this handout, it says capital outlays. These are all the capital outlay expenditures in the budget. It doesn't matter which fund they come out of, they are all within this year's current budget. You have a brief update on those in the email that I sent out. This was done on Excel. I actually found a better program for me to track it, but this is just a reflection of all of the different projects that are associated with our budget. Just a couple of really kind of big items that I wanted to just mention that you'll see. On the first page, second one down, it says police. We have included $250,000 for the upgrade of our radio communication system. That is primarily a tower that will go out. We've had a study done that shows some long-range plans for the city to look at to improve its radio communication throughout the city for public safety. The first of those items is a new tower at this police building site. We are getting ready to send that out to bid. It will be done as we go through with the construction of the police building.
How long will it take before those radios are operational?
Chief, do you have an answer for that?
Well, the radios are currently operational, they're just not functioning at a nominal capacity for us, for officer safety on the road due to the narrow banding and deterioration of our system. So this first piece of this is stepping towards fixing all of that. The new tower should be up and operational at the same time or before we move into the new building. But we will have additional phase projects such as improving and replacing equipment at 17th and Orr, upgrading our what is now called Ctron consoles in dispatch are still running on XP. We need to replace those. And then improvements at Josephine Young. And then the long-range proposals are actually to add a couple of additional towers on north end and center of city to cover our dead spots. And we'll build those out as we go. But these first three projects, this tower, 17th and Orr, and improvements at Josephine Young should significantly change what's going on.
So you're still talking about a year?
A year or more, yeah.
Now, one thing that's important as you go through all of these to distinguish is long-term versus short-term or maintenance projects. Again, if I'm looking at the two police projects, the long-term, or I should say one-time. The new tower for the radio system is a long-term, one-time project. Replacement of two vehicles is an ongoing maintenance type of capital where we replace two each year. And so as you go through these, some of these will be ongoing annual maintenance projects. Others will be more of the one-time. That becomes important as we get towards the end of our discussion as we talk about capital projects. Debbie puts together a quarterly financial statement. We're adding this to that, and we will be sending that to you as we get closer to the budget so that you know where we are with our project. I have to say one thing that I think we probably do fairly regularly with capital projects is bite off more than we can chew, and that we can actually finish inside of a year. Some of these you'll see will become what we would call carryover projects, which we won't either be able to start them or complete them by June 30th. And we will keep you abreast of those projects.
And those projects will stay earmarked, the money will stay earmarked for those projects?
We have not actually done that as a formal part of the budget. I've done that in a previous city where you would have a section that's called carryover projects. We have not done that unless the project is under construction. And so if it's not under construction, it could end up falling back to be completely reviewed again.
Depends on what the department heads submit for their proposed budget. If they are aware that it's not going to be done and they put it in, then it is included in the following year. If they don't, then it's not, unless we touch it somehow.
I found, go ahead.
Haven't we added money because things didn't get done?
Yeah,
Right.
we have done budget transfers, rollovers. In fact, on Monday, you will have one or two more of those
Right.
things that didn't get done in the 17-18 year that we're asking to re-budget into this year. So
I
if
have-
it doesn't get into the budget, then we end up doing a budget transfer for it.
I found that there are some disadvantages to having carryover projects that are not under construction. I used to work with a public works director and an engineer that would pad the competition for the monies by having millions and millions of dollars of carryover projects that never get done. But it was to protect the funds so that the police
It
would
was
use it
there,
or somebody else would use it. And
It's like
so,
a rainy day.
yeah, and so unless it's under construction, we'll probably stick with the policy that if we didn't get it done, it goes back to be reviewed. To protect ourselves from not losing track of stuff, that's why we also have the capital improvement plans that we'll be reviewing in just a few minutes. That public works director was very good at that. Okay.
May I say something
Yes,
before we
ma'am.
move on? I'm just kind of glancing through this list of projects, and I'm happy to see the sidewalk projects, and I just want to say that out loud.
If you recall, a lot
I
of
heard
this.
that in the budget, sidewalks.
A lot of the sidewalk projects came from the budget committee. It was not part of the
Yes.
original budget that we prepared, so.
Are those gonna get done?
Stephanie, are those gonna get done?
Some are this year. We'll definitely have made some good progress on them all.
More than what would have been scheduled. Did more get done than originally had been planned?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
so that's the idea, was to get more done than what was there. Around.
I mean, like the taco, I mean, we talked about 101 and Taco Bell and all around there. I mean, I don't see anything. I've
Do you
seen them
want to tell where
surveying
we are
down
on those?
14th Street,
Can you
but
rattle that through the top of your head?
Sure, so actually, Wednesday, we're having an open house in the afternoon on two of them. One for the North End projects from Taco Bell to Homes. We've got a preliminary design. We're meeting with each of the property owners to work out the details of their driveways and construction easements and whatnot. Same with the 19th to 23rd. So I'm hoping that we can get at least 19th to 23rd is pretty straightforward. Maybe we'll bid that first and then work on the north end, but we should make good progress. We should be getting those out to bid shortly as long as the property owners agree and work with us.
Any questions, other questions on capital?
So if we, yeah, I'm still stuck on the sidewalk, sorry. If we decided that was a priority enough to budget money for it, and we aren't able to accomplish it or get it started this year, then can we request that those automatically get pulled into next year's budget?
You can. Yes, as a matter of fact, this is the area where your homework really comes into place as we provide you with you information. I'll deal a little bit more with that in detail, but essentially it's this. One of the parts of our budget last year, the process that I wasn't satisfied with, is that we got right to the very end, we were making a lot of changes and signing where the funds would come out of that. What we really would like to do is to move that discussion to the front of the budget committee meeting. That's why I'm so very pleased we can hold this meeting tonight. And so as we go through, as you drive around town, as you talk with people, as you look at what needs to be done, as you're aware of what may or may not be finished in this budget, information that you send back to Debbie and I, we will be able to use that as we consider what the budget will be. Now, it may be that when we present our budget, what you have specifically had interest in isn't in there, but we can at least prepare the financial information so that you have it at the beginning of the meeting, so that if you say, I think we ought to put $500,000 here, that it wasn't included in the budget, then we're doing that at the beginning of the meeting when you're talking about everything, instead of when everybody's kind of tired and feeling a bit rushed. So the homework that we want to place on your guys' shoulders is to look through what we've done, look through the capital plans that we're going to be discussing, and then feed us with information of things that you will be interested in. Now, the council will be holding some their priority meetings coming up in the first quarter. And a lot of the decisions that Debbie and I will be making on the budget will be based upon what we're hearing from the city council. So, but like I said, if you're seeing things that you would like to see within the budget, if you can get that to us early enough, we can either consider it as part of going into the budget, or if it doesn't go into the budget, you'll at least have the numbers so that you can have that discussion before we even begin the process. Okay? And we will provide to you the list of things that committee members have requested that may not be in the budget. So, yes, sir.
Well, I'm looking at this capital outlay on the first page, the Rec Teen Center, looks like it was done in 2018?
It's being done now. There was $42,000 that was budgeted for 19. It was budgeted in this last year's budget. And they're in the process of purchasing the equipment. They're also in the process of creating a teen city council who would essentially be the operators and managers of that.
And the City Hall roof has been replaced?
It has. That's done.
And 8 units of HVAC?
That is done.
And the tap dock?
That is done. We were waiting on our certificate of occupancy permit, and we will be having a groundbreaking ceremony in about 2 weeks. Not groundbreaking, ribbon cutting in about 2 weeks.
Under budget, or
Pardon me?
was that under budget?
It was on budget, right on budget.
And Barracuda email security?
Tony?
It's done? Great. Thank you.
The next thing I want to talk about for just a few minutes is these pages. These are the forecasts of the budget. Okay. For me, as we go through the budget, this is perhaps the most important document that we review. And there's really kind of 3 parts that I want to just point out to you. If you look down to you would be on your right-hand side, second one up, $6 million. Down at the very bottom, first page, this is the general fund projection of revenues and expenditures. Okay? This is the one that you used last year. Debbie will be updating that over the course of the next month to give to our department head. So we're still using the one, so there will be some changes. But the first thing I'd like you to notice is that it says $6 million towards the bottom. That's the rainy day fund. Okay? So our forecast maintains that policy of having a rainy day fund. Okay? The second part that I would like you to look at is that if you look under expenditures, beginning with proposed budget fiscal year 2019, 18 and 19, it says $945,000. Okay, see where I am on that? And you carry that over, and by the time we get to 23, 24, it's 0. That is that buffer amount that we were talking about that was meant to be a hedge against inflation. My concern is that we're using that too quickly. Okay, the gobbling up of that, to take it from 945,000 to 0, is for non-capital. That would be for increase in operations. Okay, so that part of this forecast is something that concerns me a great deal. Okay. The third area, you'll notice that at the bottom of revenue, total revenue, and the bottom of total expenditures, you see what the projected percentage increase is. So that you'll see in next year, we are projecting an increase in revenue of 2.4% and an increase of expenditures of 1.8%. And then you go forward in the same years, okay? In the last 4 years, the budgets that I've been involved with, what we have done in the preparation of our budget is that the department heads have given to me their budget, and then we have began to look at how do we bring it back in line, okay? The change that we will be making this year is that the increase cannot be more, the increase in expenditures cannot be more than the increase in revenues. Okay, that's the beginning point that our staff will be working from. Now, everybody, so if it's 2.4%, everybody's budget won't be exactly 2.4%. There will be give and take as we work through it, as we look at council priorities and so forth. But that will be where we are starting from. The reason for that is, as you can see, is that the path is not sustainable. Now, one point to bring out that's really significant is that you'll notice that in 2020 we're projecting a 2.4% increase in revenue and a 1.86% increase in expenditures. Now, on its face, they go, wow, that's great. That means we're going to have a surplus. But if you go down to the next line, you'll notice it still says a $575,000 deficit. The reason for that is that you're starting from different numbers, okay? This 2.4%, $12,710,000 is 2.4% higher than $12,415,000. And $13,286,000 is 1.8% higher than $13,052,000. So even though it shows that one's a little bit higher, there's still work that we initially have to reduce, or we have to make sure our expenditures are $500,000 less than what is projected on this sheet.
It's also because the prior year it had a larger deficit, and so the deficit is decreasing.
So why don't you add one more line that shows the difference in increase from 12,294 to 12,415, that difference against the increase, the 11,917 to 13,052.
Dollar amount instead of.
Why don't you, just give us that number,
Okay, we can do that.
So then we see, okay, well, we are increasing at this percentage or decreasing or whatever it is.
We know that inflation will work against us. It always does. But the longer we can stretch that out before having to go find alternative revenue sources, the better we're going to be. And so we will be coming from the point that the increases in expenditures will not exceed the increase in the projected revenues.
When will you have a real number for what is now projected revenue for 18-19?
A real number for the revenue?
When will you update this?
Right now, the form we're looking at, you projected a revenue increase of 1.0% for 18-19, which is substantially lower than any of the earlier years. I know we had this discussion of budget. So when will you have a real number for that 1.0 to find out what it really was?
We'll be doing estimated year-end numbers. Hopefully by the end of this month, I'll have that done. It'll still be an estimate, but it'll be a revised estimate based on 6 months of actual. Might be early June. So then I give you 6 months.
January. These ones are all actual, right?
Yeah.
And then this will become an actual at that point.
17, 18, we have those numbers. We've just finished them.
So at the end of the month, we'll have this updated.
The 17-18 actual now, the 2.9 actual, or is that still?
No,
estimated?
that's still estimated. I haven't updated this to put the actual in, but I just did my last journal entry, hopefully, last week.
Can you say one more time what happened in the 2016 actual to where we went from the change of fund balance to positive 2.2 to a 376, and why that's going down again?
So the big change between 16-17 and 17-18 was the transfers out. We added $1 million in transfers out.
And why is it estimated for 2017 as opposed to actual? Because we're not done yet.
Because I have auditors here this week, I just haven't gotten around to getting this actual updated.
Okay, but so I'm just trying to get again so many things, but why, if we're starting from, let's just say 2015 actual 6.6, the beginning balance of 6.6, we have we have an addition to 2.2, so we go to 8.9, right? We only increase 376, so that 8.9 goes to 9.3, right? But then we switch it in 18-19 to have that 6,000, or the 6 million. So I'm just trying to follow that way and what it does, what happened.
We did end 17-18 with quite a bit more ending fund balance than what we estimated. I think, is it 700,000?
I thought it was 8.
It was about 700,000.
Right.
So if I put actual numbers in here, it would go from 8.9 to close to 10 million, 8.9 to 10 million. However, we are proposing to use that increase to help fund the police station, in which case it would be transferred out and would not be in here anymore.
So this is post-transfer?
Yeah. Transfers out are considered an expense in governmental accounting.
So that was just out of extra money you had, it didn't come out of TRT? That was what the proposed was?
Yeah.
And that's based on that 1% increase? It was not a 1%? That's where that 700,000 increase came from?
Revenues came in higher than we estimated and expenditures came in lower. Primarily the expenditures came in lower than estimated.
And then we still have to add back in the things that didn't get done back, which would affect that, this as well?
For the next year.
Right.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that, I'll just point out, if you took that 6 million and dropped it down and added it to the bottom line, then you've got a straight across number. We just simply broke it out to say, that's going to be our rainy day fund.
But what, all right.
So in other words, that would actually be 8,675,456 for the proposed ending fund balance.
Because we have to subtract the 600,000, 637 out of the 9,312 from the year before.
Correct. Yeah.
But those aren't the numbers that are actual.
Correct. Right.
In theory. All right. Just follow the follow. Yeah.
Okay.
There's always a jump, when you're doing this, there's always an unfavorable difference between the last year that you show as actual and the first year that you show as estimate or budget because of just being conservative.
Sure.
But there is also such a thing as being too conservative.
Yeah.
1%.
Might be a little too conservative.
It's
better than being not too conservative, though.
As you look at, so the other forecast that I wanted to just mention to you is the facilities capital fund. That would be page 11. Okay. You'll see that it says public safety facility. And it had, beginning in 2020 of $690,000. That's the debt service. It'll be about $615,000. So we're coming out a little bit ahead on that. Pardon me?
615 all the way across.
All the way. It goes 614, 617, but it's right around 615,000. Yeah, Debbie's a part of Rotary, and she got fined. And when we have lunch, they fine you for something or other. She fined the city. She got fined for sinking the city $11 million into debt. So.
Said I opened up the bank account this morning, and there was $11 million.
The other thing that I just want to mention is that in the water and the sewer funds, again, we're trying to maintain the ending fund balance. To account for about 4 to 5 months of cash flow. Anything else we need
Ron, why do we do 4 or 5 months there, but we do more in the general fund? Why wouldn't they be out the same 7, 8 months or whatever?
Well, one reason is
Oh, wait.
the funding source. So water, we bill and collect every month. So the property taxes are once a year. So that the float on cash is different. Water and sewer funds are very restricted. They can only be used for water and sewer, whereas general fund monies are largely unrestricted, so they could be used for anything. So there could be a lot more demands made on the general fund than there are in water and sewer. So it could be anything, like a police building.
I was just thinking, if something goes wrong, I mean, that's what the rainy day fund is.
And the general
And
fund
where-
can send money to other funds,
Such as the water and sewer.
but it can't go the other way.
Right, okay. So I guess that would be the answer is you want to keep your general fund higher because it can download it.
Yes.
So, you know,
It can be used for a lot more different purposes.
Is there some, somebody who's been running Public Works for 29 years who can say, oh yeah, historically, we've never really needed more than that 4-month, excess?
Yeah, yes, as a matter of fact, there's two ways in which we track this. Debbie tracks it through our regular program, and she can track 15 years or so. She have back of information.
Like 07.
Yeah, so she's got 12, 13 years of information. I have also used this thing that evaluates trends, and so I've taken it back over the last 10 years to look at every line item and the trend that we have on all of those, and where our, Debbie's got the fund balances, mine are really more on the expenses and revenue, so we can see what trends are on those. And now, where those are significant for me are not necessarily the dollar amounts, it's based on something else. So, for example, expenditures per capita, employees per capita. It's that denominator that gives you the ability to track. The best example I usually use is someone will say, when I used to work for the city 40 years ago, we only had 4 employees. Now you've got all these employees. And you say, yeah, but when you worked for the city 40 years ago, we only had 150 people that lived here. So, and so when you look at, one of the things I track is employees per capita. And the ratio should remain the same unless there is a change in service. And that's when you would see a jump. If you see something that's going like this, it means that that's a warning trend.
I guess so. What raised my concern, and maybe Rick's hitting on it, and I didn't go back and look, so I apologize, but I don't remember us having on our capital plan the Schooner Creek replacement of the main pipe, the only one we had, sewer pipe.
That we just did.
It just cost us
Yeah.
$300,000. Fortunately, we have it in reserve, and I mean, I'm looking at that itself, an unscheduled, unplanned replacement wipes out half your reserve fund, $300,000. And so I worry about that stuff that's underground, that we do a nice job, and I know you're going to go through it with capital funds and I think we do age things and have it on a chart. Boy, all it takes is one big blow up and we're in trouble.
So, Councilor, if I'm understanding what I'm hearing, your question whether or not our reserve is sufficient
Yes.
as a rainy day fund.
And I guess the offset of that is to really, do we have enough, the capital, our projections for capital projects, how soon those come on. I guess you can bait and switch or move things around with those.
Yeah, we have $6 million in the rainy day fund.
In the general fund.
Right, but we can move that.
I understand that, and I appreciate that you can download it, and that's good. But I like to think of these sewer and water as separate entities and need to stand alone to those. And it just, knowing that 300,000 went out and we weren't even planning on it, it wouldn't take many of those.
So they should pay for themselves out of the.
Yeah, well, that's been our philosophy, and I think a good one. So that's all why it was
So
questioned.
generally what has happened is that if there has been a big project like we just had, what it usually means is that if there isn't sufficient savings in another project, the project gets pushed to another year, and something gets delayed. That's generally been our pattern of operation.
And could you call that a safety valve?
As long as there's money to push, yes. As long as there's projects to push, yes.
But then
But
there's
we don't
also-
have any shortage of projects, do we?
No, we don't have shortages of
But
projects.
there's also what you were talking about early on is the number of projects you can do within a year. So if the 24-inch gets bumped up, we didn't know what was even
Yeah.
beyond the schedule, and then those other things get bumped out, then it's
True.
not, so it's not just money, it's length of time that we're getting a bunch of work.
Okay, any more questions on forecasting? The last part that I want to spend a little bit of time on was really on capital. This is the area where the budget committee really has its greatest input, and really has its greatest, not input, the greatest effect. The operational expenses generally don't change significantly from year to year. The individual line items, the cost per paper clips, things like that. You'll see little changes, but by and large, they really don't change a lot. Where you see things like that change, an example would be in our urban renewal department, where we expanded that to include economic development, and now is a new service that's being added, so you're seeing a jump in its operational expenditure. It now begins to just carry on with that amount. But it's really in the area of the capital where where people can have a significant impact on the city through the budget. So we have, and almost all of our capital projects really come from 7 documents. There are others that come in as the priorities of the council comes forward, but as far as the staff goes and looking to the future, there's really 7 documents that come into play. And I've printed up the summaries of each of those documents for you. The first one is this one that has the purple, green, orange, and blue. This is a summary of the overlay projects through fiscal year 2021. So it includes the ones we had in 18, the ones we're doing in 19, 20, and 21. It's from this one that we've looked and said we need about $500,000 a year, each year, to be able to overlay all of the city's roads over a 20-year period. This will be updated by January 11th, when the capital projects are due to me. And so you'll see this now carry out in the next 2 to 3 years past this one, as this one gets updated.
I just have a question about, so this year, last year, whatever, maybe next year at $500,000 does X number of feet or miles or yards or however she measures the overlay, but we know that asphalt changes in cost significantly between year to year. It can go up and whatever. So does that matter to this?
It does. At this point, we're still at about $500,000 a year to meet it. If the prices were to skyrocket, we'd either have to increase it or stretch out how many years it takes. If the prices were to fall, then we can either increase it and shorten the years that it take, or stay on and just spend less.
But wouldn't that be then the budget committee, we would know it as we're formulating that year's
Part of the capital plan that Public Works will submit on this not only includes what the projects are, but the forecast over the 20 years to get there, so we know we're still on track.
But I think last year when we did the budget, we put in like $1 million more just to get those projects done because of the costs going up. Or whatever, we put in a significant
That was
amount more.
That was in sidewalks. This one is in asphalt. Yeah, this one's just asphalt only. And again, this one just takes us through 2021. When we get the next ones together, I'll probably, as soon as I have a chance to look at it, I'm going to send this information to you earlier so you have a chance to look at it. It will take it out the next couple of years and review it. We also have a map that shows where we have been and where we're coming up to it.
And Ron, what's the heading for the column next to the running fiscal year total?
That would be the estimated cost of the project.
Okay.
This is the running.
Once a,
No,
162 plus 144
Go down
plus
to the
96.
go down to the last purple.
Oh, it's a cumulative total.
It's a cumulative total.
Yeah.
It's a running.
cumulative for each year.
What? I thought it was
Oh, I see, it's on
This-
there.
budget versus actual.
1.1 the first year, 1.2
So
the
this is-
second,
So
and
this is
1.2
the
the third.
estimate, so, and
If you
this is
take
the
this and
running.
add this.
Oh, I know, I understand the running, I'm just saying, so this is
Yeah,
the
those are
project.
the individual project estimates.
Okay.
I'm just curious, I think I kind of know the answer to this, but if this schedule of these projects, is that at all related to what's underneath the street in terms of
Stephanie, can you address how we,
anticipated?
can you address how we choose?
Yeah, what gives the project priority? Is anybody looking at, oh, the sewer line on that street, that's really old, and that's probably one that we're gonna need to, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, we do. We look at the point where if we're going to overlay a street, for example, we always look at the water and sewer, the condition of those lines. A lot of times, the street, the water, the sewer all need upgrading, and that's what we had in a lot of these cases, 22nd, 21st.
I figured that was.
Exactly, they come, they sort of, some of them will overlap, some of them will drive the improvement, but usually it's the street that drives it, and then we go ahead and upgrade the utilities as needed. Or it could also be a really bad sewer line, and then we're gonna dig up the whole street anyway, let's go ahead and make our improvement.
I don't want to overlay a street and find out that next year that the
No.
sewer line blew up.
We hate that.
Right.
We do not, we try to avoid that at all costs, we really do.
Hate when that happens.
So can I ask another street question? So you're planning to do an overlay, but suppose the land is dropping and you have to replace the road completely. And I've seen a couple of these dropping. Where does that fit into?
That's, Judy, that's not what, that would, we would
That's-
call that an overlay, we call it a rebuild. So each of these overlays have different levels, different costs. Some are just straight overlays, some are grinding overlays. If a street is falling apart, you have to rebuild it, then it's just more per square foot.
That would be
to do
another
that.
budget item?
Yeah, it would be a budget number, it would be the number reflected in that project.
Okay.
Because this street, it says overlay, but it's a total rebuild. And
Okay.
yeah, that'll be reflected in the description of the treatment.
There's 3 projects on here for 17-18 that says move to 18-19. So am I correct in assuming then that those will show up in this coming budget?
Yes, although
Oh, there's 4, sorry, there's 4
the
projects.
one, the one on 21st Street, for some reason I showed that moved, but that is in this year's budget, so that one won't be number 7.
I mean,
No,
and
that
how-
was
Here
great
is
to
this
know,
year.
too.
We do.
What's that?
We are in 1819.
Oh.
We are in fiscal year 19.
Oops.
So those ones,
Yeah.
those 3, yes, they have, or 4 have.
Because
are
Northeast
now
68 and
marked.
Northeast 69 have been done, right?
Right, those are
Right.
done.
Right.
Are these rollovers from last year, the purple ones, is that why the date is, I mean, the year is on?
Yeah, this budget was prepared for the fiscal year 18 budget, 18, 19, 20, and 21. So these top ones are projects that have either moved forward or should be done. We are working in the green ones, which is fiscal year 19,
And some.
and some of them.
Yeah, we're still working on some of those.
Okay.
And so what you'll see coming to you will be the green showing what this year plus a couple new colors.
And when a project moves forward like that, so the Southeast High School Drive that was originally 17-18 got moved to 18-19. What happened, the money that was budgeted for it in 17-18 just was left over as excess money, unfunded.
Yes.
balance.
It either got rebudgeted in 18, 19.
In 17-18. And
At
then
the
got
end,
budgeted all over again for
at the end
18-19.
of 18, it would have been just simply unspent budget.
Right.
And so it would have then rolled over into money that could be used in 19. Yeah.
And then the Cutler City project with shutting off Jetty and building 61st, is that a whole separate entity? I don't see that. It's not an overlay.
Allison, now this one's you to answer.
Yeah, we have two projects left for urban renewal. One will be bid and constructed through Public Works, and that's the Southwest Jetty Realignment Project. And that should be done by June of 19.
So that's all under urban renewal, not on any of these lists?
Correct.
So what's the other one?
The other one is a sidewalk gap that will connect the two turnouts on Highway 101. That one we don't yet have a time estimate because we are waiting for a couple of things before we really push harder on the design for that project.
Okay, the next document is this map. There's actually a corresponding PowerPoint that goes with this, 20 to 25 pages, that Stephanie and Lila showed back to the City Council in April. If you would like a copy of that, let me know and I can email it, or if you'd like it printed, we can print it. But essentially, there are 10 projects that would fill in the sidewalks along Highway 101, the gaps.
And this includes the three projects that Kevin and Nancy are just so concerned about.
This includes the projects for
No,
this
we're
year.
just concerned about the money.
Yeah.
Come on.
Okay.
Yes, it includes the projects for
Well, you're
this year.
concerned them not getting done.
4
it sounds
million?
like.
Which of the ones on here are ones that are theoretically being done this year?
Is that 2, 3, 7, 8, and 9?
2, 3, and 8.
Oh.
Right, and there's your million plus. And that was on this first sheet. That was on this sheet on the second page.
So you're talking about fiscal year 1920?
Capital outlay.
Yes.
Fiscal, no, 2, 3, and 8 are fiscal year 2019, the one we're currently in.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, 2020 seemed like a long time ago. I mean, it seemed like it was a long ways away, not too many years ago.
So we will then, number 2, 3, and 8, maybe we'll be finished with that when we begin the next budget. So what is in the next budget?
We don't know yet.
Okay,
Okay. This one has not been broken out into a year-by-year basis. We only just have the totals. We haven't put it into a first 3 years, second 3 years, and so forth. Okay, the next document is this one that states Water Capital Improvement Plans fiscal years 2006 through 2026. As you can see, there's a total of $16 million worth of projects. The way we work on this is that we go as far as we can in a year, and that's where we pick up the next year, just go as far as we can. Because this started 2016, items number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 are done.
Say that again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7?
And 7.
Well, except 4 will be done this year, but it's coming to the council. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm thinking completion of 2009.
yeah.
And then item number 6 has been dropped off, and will you explain that one, Stephanie?
We put item 6 in there because we had 2 main breaks that were really unexplained. in that when we exposed the pipe, we couldn't tell why it broke, but it was a strange break. It was a longitudinal break. And so we wanted to do some more investigation. We thought maybe we had a whole street that needed to be just replaced because of these these breaks that really we couldn't explain. But the rest of the pipe, the spot checking we've done, the rest of that line looks really good. So we're not going to go ahead, we're not going to replace that whole line. Instead, we're going to watch it.
Where?
That's on Beach. Between.
Number 6.
Oh, yeah,
Second
number
page.
6.
These projects are put in the order in which the staff thinks they are of importance to be done. So when you look at, as we go to next year, we would be looking then at 8, 9, 10, and so forth. These are reviewed each year to determine if we're still on track or if there's something that needs to jump up, change, so forth. The next project, or the next list, is the sewer capital improvement plan, which is this one that has the green on it. Okay, this is done in the same way as the water, wherein we go through its order of importance, and the projects that have been completed are 1, 2, 3, 6. There's 2 6s, sorry about that. 6, 7, and 7. And then projects 4, 5, and 8. 4 and 5 have been deleted from this. And then we start up on 8, is that right?
Yes.
And then, so where we're starting up is the Pier Point Sanitary Pump Station. We mentioned, if you recall, the policy that we put in place last year that we're planning on carrying forward to try to create a revenue source that would be equal to about $1 million a year. It's amazing how many of these projects kind of work towards that $1 million a year, or 2 of them equals $1 million a year. And so this is our capital improvement plan to take us to 2030. And we will be, like I said, this gets reviewed and updated. It'll be updated a month from now, 5 weeks from
Is this in the order of operations as well?
now. In the order of priority?
Priority?
Yes, sir.
And I'll just let you know now, I'm gonna have an issue with Nell Scott Pump Station being so far down on the list.
That's what we want to hear.
Yep, that's.
Why? So, because it fails all the time.
Oh, Brother, are you talking about number 13?
No.
Or the build, the full build out?
26.
Yeah,
Isn't that that's the one?
that's,
what we need fixed.
well,
Well, I don't know, that's what it seems like. You tell me, but then I'll tell them.
Stop the discharging.
Correct, period.
But that is not where we're trying, we did the double line across Schooner to check that. But we also have the Hill
the force
High
main on
School,
high
Forts
school.
Main.
Yeah, and that's this year's
And
project.
then there was another one somewhere else that got discharged, not in a typical place.
Oh, that was a break on Jetty.
What was it?
Northwest Jetty.
I don't remember.
Yeah, that was a break.
Okay, okay.
Now, this brings up a really good point. What you're seeing in here is the name of the projects, the estimate of the cost, but not the justification for the order. If you have questions on that, the sooner you get those questions to us, the sooner we can either answer them or take them into consideration as we look at the priority system again.
I'm gonna guess because it hasn't been designed, that's why it's not fixed.
That could be a big part of it.
Just take it.
I have a question about number 13. Is that what we just did?
But that is one that is now done. Thank you.
Oh, nice. Good catch. And then if we're gonna look, there was the one on Southeast Third, would that tie in with the construction of the police station, or no?
I don't think we have any projects that are upgrades to the sewer that are tied with that. You're talking about number 25, the
Yeah.
Southeast Third Pump
Yeah,
Station?
I mean, I know it's a bit away, but,
Through a park.
well, it's under third, I would guess. North half of the river north. Yeah, it's pretty big.
This 1920 budget year, the funding in sewer is going to be slim unless we augment it with funding from elsewhere.
Copy that. Augment.
And that's because the last year, or this year's rate, increase in,
And we pretty
Use
much,
as a-
we've used up all the funds that were available, the SDC funds.
okay,
So there's basically really no funding. I mean, we've got a bit because we did do that one rate increase, so we will have some, but we need to do that for 2 or 3 years to get up to
Before
the
it
1
builds.
million.
okay.
So, we might have 300,000, maybe 400,000, but no, on this, it doesn't go very far.
It's also because we reduced the rate, STC.
Right, well, yeah, that doesn't help either.
Well, just as a,
We're getting more.
oh, well, hey, I'm not suggesting anything like that.
Don't quite a bit in reserve though. I thought there was like 3-point-something million in sewer reserve, water reserve.
Not, at the end of 17-18, there is not. We spent a lot of money this year in the sewer, last year, 17-18. Yeah, 17-18 year, we spent most of the reserves. Which you will see when you get the budget book, it wasn't in last year's, but it was.
Okay, because there was quite a bit in it from what I remember.
There's, I think it was 2 or 3 million, but that's, that one project alone was 1.6 million, the down here, that. Not the underground, the second line,
That was 1.34.
1.34 was just that one, and then there was, okay.
So,
Might be better than
Can I ask a question
yes, ma'am.
before we leave sewers? Does this, I didn't look at every single one of this, does this include all of the, once you're doing the upgrades of the pump stations?
Yes, the upgrades
So
of the
that's
pump
about $1 million
stations, what it doesn't reflect is the increased amount we put in for the infiltration protection. That we had separate from this.
Oh, I see.
So this is the next plan, okay? The transportation systems plan. I've copied for you this part of it, which is the actual plan of the costs and everything else. These are online. I'm hoping you all don't want a physical copy of this, but these are all online, but you can look. The pages that I printed are really the dollar and cents pages. Now, it's important to note on this, says the plan on the top, it's transportation systems plan. The important thing that's to note on this is that is how it differs from the other capital plans we just looked at. You'll notice if you go to the very first page, table 1, in the column called primary funding sources, you'll notice it says city, then it goes down and says ODOT, and then if you turn the page, it says developer, ODOT, tribe, so forth. All of these are transportation, are roads that will eventually be built, but may not need to be built now until development happens. And so when you see something that says developer, that's a road that will eventually come into play, but it's not necessary until somebody actually develops the property. So the ones that that we are really focused on are the ones that say city. Okay. Now, the thing that we haven't done with this one is that it gives priorities, or it gives projects based upon the type of project it is. So example, it says T1 is, these are projects for transit projects. Then it goes to one that's called M, which are for demand and systems management projects. What we have not done with the city council is to go through this and really prioritize it, okay? Most of the transportation projects are going to come out of this, but we really haven't spent the time with the council to prioritize and say, these are the most important projects that need to be done. That's something we still need to do, and as we have the opportunity, we'll do that.
You said that's the website?
It is on the website. If you go to departments, go under the planning and community development, and then look under plans. You'll find it there. Is that right, Richard?
Plans or master plans.
Yeah. And that's where you'll find it. It gives a lot of information about it. Like I said, it's that huge book. But these are the dollar projects. Yes, sir. So one of the things we will need to do with the city council is to actually really go through this and prioritize projects. Yes,
So there's some things in here that sidewalk infill and that, are they duplicated or the sidewalk gaps, those are bigger than just the infill, or some of these on both, just because these are actual projects?
You know, I'll have to check that. I don't know the answer to that question.
And I think we'll probably have to go through and check out the ones that have already been completed as well. Because the widening of the road was one of them. But then you see like it's prior.
The next plan that we have is this one, okay? And it's what is your plan implementation, okay? The document looks like this. It says plan implementation. What I didn't write on the top of it, it's the Parks and Recreation Systems Plan. This also is found online if you'd like to look at it. The thing that you'll notice on this is that when I sent out the material that said priorities, council's goals and priorities, one of the goals was for the Parks and Recreation Committee to prioritize this plan. They've done some of that. Jeannie will continue to work with them in trying to establish it. All total, you'll see that it's about $25 million worth of projects. Some of them are doable, some of them may not be doable. And so the biggest part of the council's goals or priorities that's still in the works is for the Parks Committee to really go through this and prioritize. Which one?
I want to know, sorry, can I clarify something there? The Parks Committee would be making recommendations to the city council?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. And then the council would be able to take it, adopt it, modify it, reject it, then do their thing. If you're interested in just some fun visioning, looking at what our community has said to do, this is a good plan to look at, because it was not a lot of filtering to get it to what is necessarily doable. It was very much more of, this would just be the coolest thing in the world type of thing. And so the prioritization of this becomes really important in this project. Okay. The seventh document is this one. You have it on just the front and back page. This is the multi-jurisdictional natural hazardous mitigation plan. Essentially, this is your emergency preparedness capital projects. This is to look at things that we may want to do to protect our area from emergencies that may or may not, or that may happen in the future. For example, the very number one priority is to relocate the police station out of the tsunami inundation zone. I'm really pleased to say that the location is out of the tsunami inundation zone. So it's close.
That's my next question. How many feet, sir?
How many feet, Chief? How many feet?
Yeah, but
But it's one that we can check off the box and hope that, for the
Don't
best.
change
Lower insurance.
So these, again, some of these are very expensive. Some of these are not even capital expenses, but they are actions that have been recommended that we take in order to mitigate problems that will come from a natural disaster.
Who recommended it?
This came through a study that was done on, it was University of Oregon. That did it on behalf of Lincoln County, Depot Bay, Lincoln City, Newport, Siletz, Toledo, Walport, and Yachats.
And then what year? Oh, 2015?
2015 was when it was completed.
Thank you.
And they ordered them, or somebody else ordered it? Put them in priority order.
It came through the process of them working, yes. So, the homework that we're giving to you is to be familiar with all that we've discussed, and to any information that you feel will help you in the budget process, to send that to us as early as possible, so that we can make sure we've prepared. I can't guarantee that what you have asked for will end up in the budget, but we can guarantee that you'll at least have the information so that you can bring it up as part of the budgetary discussions. Council, with that, I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Anybody else have anything to say? All right. Adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we're going to get the second half
I
of the
did
game.
find it, I'm sorry, I did add up the first number.
14 to 10.
All the time for the second half.
14 to 10.
All of this,
1.65 million. 1.65 million is what we budgeted for PERS and 17, 18, 19.
Total, so the increase is 10%.
We added. That includes the 10% increase.
Right, so we got this.
Yeah.
so it's 2018.
Either way, right.
17.
You said that.
18. I was right first.